Wondering what's wrong with Johannesburg today? One need only look closer at its utility, City Power, for some answers. It's emerged the electricity entity's financials are so deep in the red that there are serious concerns that the Metro's top leaders are allegedly hiding this information from the council. In short, City Power is not collecting enough rates revenue, so the municipality is plugging this gap by pulling billions from other directorates, according to the latest report by the News 24 investigations team.
We've also spoken to a WITS governance expert, Professor Alex van den Heever, who says that, civil action can be taken against the city and its entity for this because, at the end of the day, you've got people who pay rates and taxes for the funding of City Power, and if they're not getting their services or risk totally not getting their services, then that needs to be informed to the public.
If you want to understand the state of our city, stay tuned for investigative journalist Khaya Koko and I's discussion over the next 23 minutes or so. Later in the show, it's been confirmed that Deputy President Paul Mashatile knew full well he was not the target of an alleged failed hit. And finally, legends in radio, television, and the silver screen depart the airwaves.
To stay tuned to The Lead for every edition, hit the follow and subscribe buttons on our Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels.
My name's Graeme Raubenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. Gone are the days when we talk about corruption costing this country millions. 16.3 billion rand. Billion. This is how much Johannesburg City Power's bank balance is currently in the red, reflecting the recent quarter of the current financial year. Worse still, News 24 investigative journalist Khaya Koko's established that Mayor Dada Morero has yet to formally inform the City Council about City Power's current finances. And local governance experts, they're telling him that this is tantamount to breaking municipal law. Koko joins me now from our Johannesburg studios. Khaya, thank you so much for your time. Yet another thrilling installment of your City Power Connections saga series that you've been conducting for News 24. The latest basically shows that, and take us through the numbers, that City Power is just not meeting its revenue collection targets. That, in a nutshell, is the current situation that entity is facing, right?
Yeah, and what is worse is that the city of Johannesburg, which owns City Power, is admitting that its current perilous financial position risks hampering the city's sustainability as well as its ability to deliver services to residents. So it's a pretty alarming revelation that we've unearthed, and it speaks to the general decay of Johannesburg.
What are the projected figures for City Power's revenue collection, the money that it gets from people within the city paying their rates bills, and what's the shortfall that we're talking about here, which you've just alluded to, that the city has to find finances from elsewhere to assist this entity?
So in the last financial year, the budget was just over 23 billion rand that City Power intended to collect from its paying customers, but it only managed to achieve just over 19.1 billion rand, which then leaves a shortfall about 3.9 billion rand that, as you correctly said, the city has to draw from other programs, other entities with positive balances to fund the operations as well as capital expenditure of its power entity, City Power.
Now, crucially, you've essentially today reported and uncovered that Mayor Morero's office has had this indication, what we've just alluded to, and it's had the copies of the finance department's records and report of this particular situation, but has yet to go to council where all the other parties meet to discuss and to go through all the finer figures here. That process has not unfolded since December last year. Is that right?
Since at least December, as we've ascertained, and that is part of the Municipal Finance Management Act's provisions, that when a municipality faces a non-arming financial position, as City Power has caused City of Johannesburg to do, this needs to be informed to the public, meaning the local government structure, which is council, which has not happened, unfortunately. We've also spoken to a WITS governance expert, Professor Alex van den Heever, who says that civil action can be taken against the city and its entity for this, because at the end of the day, you've got people who pay rates and taxes for the funding of City Power, and if they're not getting their services or risk totally not getting their services, then that needs to be informed to the public.
And Professor van den Heever has indeed seen the financial records that we've alluded to, right? So he has pored over the finer details of all the numbers that we've spoken about thus far, and thus given his credible opinion within the context of local governance in this country, and said, it looks as if that the municipal finance regulations and laws here are being flouted.
Correct. And he even goes further, Professor van den Heever, to say that the accounting bodies in this country, the Special Investigating Unit, the Auditor-General, there's grounds for them to intervene in this situation, because if a state structure like the City of Johannesburg collapses, then, where were the accountability bodies to intervene before that happened, before we face total calamity?
Khaya, what does that internal city financial report say about the situation of pulling funds from other directorates or other departments, thus to make up the shortfall that City Power is consistently occurring? We know further context, broader, with the Auditor-General office already indicating to us, of course, that the total number of the figure of losses over the last couple of years has been around 23 billion. What does this city report say about the fact that it's pulling money from elsewhere, and what that might mean for the average resident in Joburg?
So if you don't meet your budgeting expectations, it means you're operating with an unfunded budget. That then increases the loans you need to take, as well as pulling resources from other positive entities and social programs. That then stalls delivery elsewhere, while you're still funding an entity that bleeds quite a few cents over time. Unfortunately, when you're operating with an unfunded budget, City Power currently has a 40 billion rand backlog, infrastructure backlog, because of its aging infrastructure mainly. It also suffers quite a steep illegal connections that it needs to contend with, as well as the bypassing of meters, its metering system. Added to that, the billing situation in the city has been spoken about ad nauseum. The city just doesn't bill its customers correctly. What that then does is people opt to go to prepaid and buy directly from Eskom, or go off grid totally, and that, unfortunately, you don't know where the entity is going to get the 40 billion or close to it to reinvest its infrastructure. It says itself that it has a backlog of 40 billion in terms of infrastructure investment, and when it's making losses like this, you ask yourself, is the situation going to be fixed, and where will the money come from for that to happen?
You and I have spoken about your reporting and how City Power had, for example, dished out millions for contractor work that was not completed by a set deadline. You had previously revealed how this company called Slide Exhibits, it got 12 million rand just in JARE to install public lighting in the metro. That's despite breaking municipal finance laws in the process there. We heard about how ANC-connected businessmen led that company, whilst City Power lost some 2.8 billion rand within that particular financial year. So it's there are so many cases that you've already pointed to that shows along the way how money is just sort of being hemorrhaged willy-nilly. What is City Power now saying about the whole situation? I thought the latest comment from spokesperson Isaac Mangena in your latest piece was quite amusing, to say the least. I want to just quote it. Isaac says, we also wish to make it clear that the connection that you consistently, that's you, Khaya, of course, make in your reporting, using blanket statements from the Auditor-General to paint a picture of what you often describe as financial mismanagement and governance failures, is far off the mark and completely out of place. So in other words, Isaac Mangena, Khaya, is saying, we don't accept the AG report. What?
Yeah, basically they're saying I shouldn't quote what the AG is saying.
What? That is rubbish. That is such spin rubbish.
I mean, it made me laugh as well when that happened, because it's, if I don't quote the AG, who should I quote? If they dispute what the AG says, and as they've done before, they can release press statements and go on media tours to put their position out there. But it's not our responsibility to massage the scathing views from the Auditor-General. It's ours to interrogate the figures, use independent sources to verify them. But as a Chapter 9 institution, the AG does deserve the respect that we accord it.
Yes, and of course yourself as an investigative journalist, you're doing a lot of necessary work here as the Fourth Estate to find out what exactly is going on here, especially in the wake of the president rolling into town and saying, he's shocked about the state of Johannesburg, that it looked quote unquote filthy. And, we just recently heard in a very impressive speech from the mayor about the state of Johannesburg and wanting to sort of, turn around and turn the tide of the situation. And here today, you've revealed that the mayor's office has, was it intentional or not, but they're withholding crucial information from opposition councillors here. From my mind's eye, it seems very much like Johannesburg's in a massive mess, and it's only getting worse.
The context of President Ramaphosa's views that, and to use his word, filthy, so that calling Johannesburg filthy, and that the city's falling apart, was said in light, this was in March this year, said in light of Johannesburg being announced as the host city for the G20 presidents and state leader event that's going to happen in South Africa later in the year. So there's a lot of concern among the national government. I don't know why they chose Johannesburg for it. I mean, we've got really great conferencing centers, good logistics and infrastructure in Johannesburg. But, if you look at, especially the city, even Sandton, for example, it's and surrounding areas, they're not as pleasing as they were, say 5 to 10 years ago. So there was a lot of concern from the presidency there. That's why they set up what they called a working group to work with the city, fixing street lights, the water infrastructure, electricity infrastructure. And it's probably part of the turnaround that the mayor spoke about. But as residents, and people who work in the city, we're probably dizzy from all the turning around that we've been doing over the last few years without any actions. I don't know how many turnaround strategies will be submitted before, an outcome, a positive outcome is realized. So, it's between now and November. It's a few short months before heads of state arrive in South Africa, and it's not promising. But we do hope in the back of our heads that, by that time, something would have, a lot would have happened to improve the state of the city and beyond, not just up until November, just to put on a show for the world, beyond that, beyond November, we're still working here, we're still living here. Are we going to get services that we pay for? And as it seems right now, and this is according to the city, it doesn't look like it.
And of course, now that we've sort of seemingly got confirmation that US President Donald Trump, a famous critic of this country, is going to be stopping by for the G20 in Johannesburg, I wonder if he's not going to be tweeting an awful lot about the state of the city by then. Other than City Power and its PR spin, has any other department, local governance? I know up in Gauteng, it's the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department that would thus keep a closer eye on the financial situation of metros. Here in the Western Cape, it's the local government MEC that normally looks over things. What's that department saying at this stage?
Well, they do acknowledge that they are, and to use their word, concerned about the financial position, but they're also putting a positive spin on it to say that, listen, there are plans that we are implementing, very vague on what those plans are, besides pointing to the appointment of the presidential working group. They also seem to be putting a lot of faith in that working group to work with the city as well as the provincial government to turn around Johannesburg. The fruits of that will be seen in months and maybe a year or two to come. We also got the local government election next year, so I'm sure political parties will want to put their best foot forward. But as things stand, there isn't any best foots, to put forward. It's looking pretty grim.
Do you think it's because of the lack of leadership, that because Johannesburg's gone through so many mayors in such a short space of time since before the pandemic, that we currently find it in the situation that it is, that it does not have, a stable coalition government leading things, that there's constantly this political musical chairs that's happening, that's allowed a department, an entity of the municipality to get away with quite a lot here, that it's left to the media to expose?
Yeah, there's been about 7 different mayors in the city of Johannesburg from 3 different political parties over the last 5 years or so. So that you would say that there's that lack of, or apparent lack of stability should hinder governance and financial management. It's always every now and again, and you ask yourself, some of the back dealings, the political back dealings to form coalition. Johannesburg has been under coalition since August 2016. The only one that seemed a bit stable was the first coalition under the DA. The mayor was Herman Mashaba. But since he resigned in October 2019, as I said, 7 different mayors, 3 political parties, there's no stability there. And, going into local government next year as well, and we are firmly in the era of coalitions. It begs the question whether, this instability is something, as residents and people who work in Johannesburg, if it's something we'll have to live with going forward. And if it is, then it is pretty scary.
If we look at the list of mayors that we've seen over the last couple of years, of course, from the ANC benches, we saw Amos Masondo lead Johannesburg for around a decade. That was between 2000 and 2011. And then, of course, the current trade minister, right, Parks Tau, he took up between 2011 and 2016. You may have seen him sitting next to Ronald Lamola and the rest of the South African delegation in the White House recently. Of course, as you just alluded to, Herman Mashaba leading for the Democratic Alliance. Then following that, we saw Jeff Makubu, of course, Joladi Matongo, of course, who had died in a horrific car accident. And then Mr. Paul Murane. I interviewed Mr. Murane quite a few times on the ground because he was an MMC in various other positions. I seemingly got a good vibe from him, if you will. He was quite transparent, it seemed, at the time. So it was quite sad that he could no longer keep the position there as well. And then obviously Dr. Paul Palatse, and now coming to the former finance MMC Dada Morero, who's the current mayor. What's your engagement been with the mayor's office? Has it been easy to get information?
Well, I tried to speak to the mayor's office while also sending questions to the city, but and Tatisi Mudingwane, who speaks on behalf of the city of Johannesburg, was the only one who, I guess, he was speaking on behalf of the mayor as well. But it would have been nice to hear the mayor's voice. Chris Vondo, his spokesperson, acknowledged questions that I had sent to the mayor's office, and there was no response from them specifically. just a response from the group city spokesperson, Mr. Mudingwane. And tomorrow, Wednesday, the 29th or the 28th rather, the city of Johannesburg will be unveiling its budget for the 25-26 financial year, which begins in July. So we will get a window into how they aim to spend the money and whether the budget will be funded or not, and what strain the cuts announced by the Finance Minister Godongwana, as well as loss-making entities, how that will impact how the city distributes its budget. It should be over 50-60 billion rand, but it's not growing by much because the city is not making enough money to expand its services. We'll also look out for rises in electricity and water prices as well, rates as well, and other municipal services. They will look to generate a lot more revenue there. That will also then unfortunately force people to go independent, because when your rates and taxes are going up, but wages are stagnant, you will look to cut as much cost as possible, especially if the services you're getting intermittently, like we are in Johannesburg. So it should be an interesting budget, and we'll see how it goes.
Before I get to my final question, and of course I just wanted to point out, the 3 consecutive mayors, Makubo, Mr. Matongo and Mr. Morane, they all sadly passed away within such a short space of time. Remember that, between 2019 and 2021, and may their souls rest in peace. Very, very sad to see that happen. And then of course I failed to even mention Mr. Tapelo Ahmad from the Al Jamaa party, that was also in the mayoral's position for a short time there. That was
Gabelo Kwamanda as well.
Oh my goodness, you're reminding me now. Yeah, short-lived mayorships, right?
It speaks to the political musical chairs that's been happening, stemming from smoke-filled rooms that we are not privy to, unfortunately, where people, when they emerge, they come out with these decisions that they say are to the benefit of the city, but as residents, we don't see that.
What have the political opposition benches been saying about the coverage and the exposés of the state of city power today? Have you been receiving any calls or commentary from any of these opposition parties as they try to hold the mayor's office to account, and of course city power's executives?
I think the most vocal, in fact, as far as I know, the only opposition party, because you remember in Johannesburg, quite a few of the parties are part of the coalition. It's only the DA and to a lesser extent the Freedom Front Plus, which aren't in the city of Johannesburg coalition, and the Democratic Alliance through its caucus leader Belinda Kaiser Ezio Jonzoku, who hasn't spoken to me personally, but has in the past released public statements from the DA's office to say that they've also submitted Promotion and Access to Information Act applications related specifically to city power, because they suspect, or they've been suspecting, that all is not well at the entity. The DA says they've been blocked at every turn. They've written to the Minister of Finance, they've written to the AG, and in trying to get some form of intervention into city power as well, to no avail. So the DA has been a very vocal in terms of trying to put this out there. But it seems they've been met with a brick wall over the last year when they've been sending out these things.
And without asking about what your upcoming reports are going to uncover, I don't want to give anything away. All I'm going to say is this, Khaya, you've done excellent work. Keep it up. Your latest piece, a 16.3 billion rand crisis, billion with a B. Joburg City Power faces financial ruin as mayor allegedly buries reports. Very concerning to see what's happening in Johannesburg, especially as we've just spoken about so many different figureheads taking taking up that office in recent years. We need stability there, moving into local government elections next year. And of course, the budget's just around the corner. What does that mean for people on the ground? Will they get the services? Will the lights stay on? Is corruption going to be allowed to continue? It cannot. Sorry, it's irking me on this Tuesday, Khaya. I really do appreciate your time. And I look forward to our next discussion on the lead.
Thanks so much, Graeme. Cheers.
Moving to our trending topic, and today we've got an update on our April 24th episode titled The Mashatile Hit That Wasn't. Investigative journalist Khaya Koko had revealed then that according to sources close to a SAPS ballistics report, the alleged March assassination attempt, quote unquote, on Deputy President Paul Mashatile's life on a busy and dark Gauteng highway was not this, but rather stray shotgun bullets hitting the windscreen of the convoy vehicle he had been travelling in. Khaya now tells the lead that sometime in the days leading up to the first press reports in the previous lead episode, Mashatile was himself briefed on the ballistics report to reveal that he was not intentionally targeted. Yet, the opposite narrative grew legs.
Now, police are investigating the origin of that shot, but what's important about News 24's story today is that this narrative was allowed to grow, that this may have been an attempt on the Deputy President's life. His own spokesperson, Keith Khoza, in multiple comments to the media, sort of confirmed that his office had seen the ballistic report, but don't really delve into any detail about it. The story today sets all of that out and shows that the Deputy President and officials in his office knew that the shot was likely not fired intentionally and that police were of the view that this wasn't an attempt on his life, but still allowed that narrative to grow. Now, this ties in very neatly with our previous reporting, in which we pretty much conclusively set out how this was a soft launch moment. So they used this moment to launch Paul Mashatile's campaign for the presidency of the ANC, set to be decided at the end of 2027.
And finally, today, Mzansi was hit hard with the news that both legendary radio and television sports commentator Darren Scott, as well as award-winning Tsotsi actor Presley Chweneyagae have died. Scott died at the age of 61, whilst Chweneyagae was just 40. Scott, it's understood, had been suffering from malignant melanoma, it's a type of skin cancer, for many years now. He marked 4 decades in radio last year, after conducting shows at 5FM East Coast Radio as well as Jacaranda, to name a few. Rugby stalwart Nas Botha, with whom he co-hosted SuperSport's iconic rugby show Boots and All, has hailed Scott as quote-unquote the ultimate professional. Botha told News 24 Sports' Lloyd Bernard that he and Scott never clashed, except for their support of domestic rugby clubs, in which he struggled to convince the pundit to back the Blue Bulls. Meanwhile, the local film industry is remembering Chweneyagae, who rose to fame for his starring role in the Academy Award-winning movie Tsotsi. He was more recently known for his work in the spin-off series from the telenovela The River, entitled Kobrizi. Born in Mafeking in the Northwest Province, Chweneyagae started as a theatre stage actor in plays including Hamlet, before making his mark alongside actress Terry Petor in Hollywood. She says she's shocked and saddened and will forever cherish the moment that the pair held South Africa's very first Oscar. Well, from City Power's ballooning budget problem to confirmation that the Deputy President was not the target of a hit, the Lead's coverage this week is only getting started. We appreciate all the engagement in our most recent show from yesterday that was entitled Derailed, How PRASA Fixes Trains and Then Leaves Them to Rot, with Sipho Masondo. Of course, he had uncovered and relayed to us how the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa is now shelling out billions of taxpayers' money to refurbish the old yellow and grey Metrorail trains, but are not using them because we have enough of the new blue and white electric ones. And according to some of your comments, Get Real had written, quote, "Of course we know why old coaches are repaired but remain forever unused. It's all part of state capture and resource extraction, paid for no doubt at a BEE premium." And then Right Said Fred also gave this comment, "Another ANC cash cow for milking," quote unquote. Thank you so much. We do appreciate all the engagement. If you'd like to send more of your mails, comments, perhaps even voice notes, you can mail The Lead at thelead@24.com. That's just the numerals, to be heard in our next edition. You can also hit the follow and subscribe buttons. That'll notify you on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcast channels of our next episode as soon as it drops. My name's Graeme Raubenheimer, and so long as there's news, we'll have The Lead.